What evidence do you need for a PTSD claim? Let's dig in and find out. Welcome back to the channel, folks. Dr. Sharma here, physician, board-certified psychiatrist, and Air Force veteran. In this video, I wanted to discuss what you actually need for a PTSD diagnosis and claim in the VA process. This will be from the perspective of a psychiatrist and looking at the condition itself. Now, of course, to qualify for anything like this, you must have an in-service event that led to the PTSD. There are a lot of different possible examples for this in service, but it includes traumatic experiences where you might have felt fear for your own life or you feared that you would be physically harmed. This could be while deployed, having mortar strikes in the area, receiving direct or indirect fire, being cornered and physically threatened or hazed by others, having a fear of hostile military or terrorist activity. So that includes having the threat of mortars, Scud missiles, IEDs, similar attacks. I remember while I was deployed, our pilots would get threatened by Iranian forces over the radio. They would basically threaten to shoot the bombers, fighters, or cargo aircraft down if they came too close to Iranian airspace or what the Iranians thought was their airspace. There are a lot more examples, but those are just a few. It could also be witnessing traumatic events happening to other people. This includes seeing others receiving direct or indirect fire, others being physically assaulted, of course someone dying or nearly dying in front of you, someone committing suicide or attempting suicide in front of you, having to handle human remains and body parts. There are a lot more examples, but those are some of the ones that I encounter. I wanted to mention something here. Looking at traumatic media repeatedly, if it's a part of your job, can also be a traumatic stressor. So for instance, if you were in intel and had to look at footage of attacks repeatedly, or videos of torture or executions, things of that nature. Another example is people who have to investigate aircraft crashes. They have to watch the footage of the crash or the cockpit voice recordings repeatedly, things of that nature. Now, some of these events that happened, how do we prove it? There are some straightforward ways, like being awarded a combat action badge, combat infantryman badge, combat medic badge, air medal, other combat-related decorations. However, those are not the only way. Let's do an example. So let's say you were deployed to Balad. While there, you witnessed mortar strikes occurring on a regular basis. You had to get up out of bed at night repeatedly, grab your gear, and head to a bunker, but you weren't awarded a combat decoration. At the same time, you do have your Iraq campaign medal, or your DD-214 says that you served in Iraq during a specific time frame. This is evidence. This can then be corroborated by other pieces of evidence, like certificates or proof that you were at Balad during that time, you writing a personal statement with details about your experience, getting supporting statements from others who can corroborate your presence there, news articles about specific attacks happening while you were deployed there, basically gathering evidence that would make your narrative more compelling and vivid. Remember, they will look at the totality of evidence, and there's a concept called consistency with service. The events must be consistent with the places, types, and circumstances of your service. For instance, if your job was being a C-130 aircraft navigator, but you said you were doing convoys in Iraq, I'm not saying that's not possible, by the way, that's just an example. You do have to provide information about why that happened because that is outside of the norm of your job. Next, you need a current diagnosis. This could be a diagnosis of PTSD from a physician, medical provider, psychiatrist, psychologist, psychiatric nurse practitioner, or someone similar. Having medical records to bolster this diagnosis is also helpful. This could be records of you going to your primary care doctor for PTSD medication or a referral to a therapist. Therapy notes from your therapist about the work you've been doing on the condition can also be extremely helpful. This can also be further bolstered by supporting statements from your spouse, family, or friends about what they observed in you after coming back from the deployment. These statements should focus on specific symptoms and also impacts on your personal life and work life. Similarly, your personal statement can include information about your symptoms and impacts. Remember, You want to make your case as compelling and vivid as possible. I don't mean that you have to have statements that are pages and pages long. The key is to include the most relevant details while keeping the statements concise and informative. Again, you want to go back to the traumatic events themselves, describe them in detail, how you felt during the events. That means fear for your life or bodily harm, things like that. How you felt after coming back, what symptoms you're suffering from, and the specific impacts on your personal and professional life. I know that's a lot, but those are some of the highlights, and you don't have to list every single thing in each category, but some of those details will be especially helpful. Now, I recognize this is difficult. It's not easy to talk about these events from the past, digging into more details, getting seen for the conditions. I know it's tough to talk to people who are never in the military. My recommendation is to slowly journal about your experiences, start discussing them with a therapist, and have it be sort of an incremental process, right? Every time you process these experiences, you will also want to make sure to rest afterwards. Thinking about, writing about, or discussing these experiences can be extremely draining, and you want to make sure to take time for yourself. As always, please discuss your individual case with your provider, psychiatrist, psychologist, or therapist. Remember, this is a YouTube video. It's not medical or psychiatric advice because I don't know your case in particular, so always discuss with your provider. That's it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know if this was helpful looking at what you need for a specific diagnosis and claim. If you found this helpful, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. It really helps and tells me that I'm doing something right. Also, please drop a comment below if you have a request on a topic that you want me to cover. I'd be happy to do a video on it. As always, thanks for watching. Dr. Sharma signing off. See you next time.